Hello and good morning, friends. Welcome to this rain-filled day. We're having a glorious, foggy, and nasty, spritzy kind of day. So I want to take you with me today on a conversation. And that conversation is going to be 3 ways that you immediately can increase your bill when it comes to somebody servicing or repairing your septic system. So let's get into what those ways are. The first way is a very, very easy, simple way to do it, and that's by putting a very large bush right on top of the tank. We can see right in here that we have our clean out and our riser. As soon as you make it where you have to kind of get into all this wet bushes or plants that have thorns on it, you're immediately going to have to work a little bit harder and you're going to end up paying a little bit more. In general, bushes aren't necessarily that big of a deal when it comes to septic systems, just not ones with thorns, right? The ones that have thorns on them, you're just asking to pay a little bit more because nobody wants to deal with that. It sucks, it's painful, and it's not fun, especially on a wet, rainy day like this. Like I said, it's very important to make sure that you don't put any plants over top of your septic system, especially trees. I have seen so many a system go completely wrong and get destroyed because somebody put a tree over top their tank when they weren't supposed to. Now, you'll see a lot of people back in like the 50s and 60s would plant these trees just so that way they knew where their tank was. But, 70 years goes by and all of a sudden now that little tiny marker tree is a big old giant oak, right? So I usually recommend just outright not putting any of those plants anywhere near your septic. If you're gonna do it, put a leafy plant or something with shallow roots. I get it. Septic tank covers, not very pretty. Nobody wants to look at those, but it's a really, really bad idea. 1, because you're gonna cause some problems, and 2, because you're gonna pay more. Nobody wants to pay more for something real simple. Now, most of these charges that everybody charges more for is going to be for inconvenience, right? Nothing's free, and just because it's inconvenient, you're going to end up paying for more, and nobody wants that. The second thing that people do that'll make them end up having to pay more is flushable wipes. Now, those flushable wipes are super, super common. Everybody loves them. They think that they're great, and that once it goes down the toilet, as long as it's not clogging, you're fine. But I will tell you, those flushable wipes clog quite a bit. I see it all the time where somebody flushes it down, they've got cast iron pipes. Even if they have PVC pipes, they still end up clogging up their sewer line and having sewage come back to their house. And that can be expensive and kind of gross, right? So I'm not sure how these companies who make the flushable wipes haven't been sued into oblivion yet, because it kind of seems a little bit ridiculous that they're able to get away with doing something quite like that. So they advertise these flushable wipes as being septic safe in some circumstances. I have yet to come across one that is septic safe. And the reason why is that they're really, really stretchy and they're kind of thick. They don't really break down quite the same way that toilet paper does. And so what'll happen is you flush it down the toilet, it'll make it through the sewer pipe, but then it'll float on the water in the tank. And then it ends up building up in the front baffle. And because it floats, it builds up, until eventually it blocks that inlet pipe. Now, if you have a blockage in the inlet pipe, now you have a clog where sewage is going back to your house, but now you gotta pay somebody to come out there and dislodge that clog. I don't know about your area, but in our area, to pay a plumber or a septic guy to come out, especially because it almost always happens at the worst possible time, and snake out your sewer line or remove that debris, those emergency fees, they're definitely gonna be expensive, and nobody wants that. Now, flushable wipes are not necessarily too much of an issue for pumpers, but it can cause problems for them when they go to the municipal to get rid of it, or it can plug up their hoses. I've seen some forums on Facebook groups where some of these guys will actually leave that debris in the person's yard. Now, I think that's a terrible idea and very unprofessional. But a lot of these municipal plants that you have to go to get rid of that sewage water, they'll actually charge the contractor a significant amount to get rid of it because it's trash. It goes to the landfill. If you make the contractor pay more, guess who's actually paying more? You as the customer, because they're just going to roll that price right over to you and you're going to end up paying more for that service. Last thing that's the most annoying for a septic guy, but also is going to cost you the most as a homeowner, is if you don't have access to the surface, all right? I get it. Access caps are ugly. I get it. Nobody really wants those in their yard. But if you're making somebody pull out the tarp and the shovel, and especially if you want them to leave a decent yard when they get done with it, you're gonna pay more, right? So like in our area, a lot of the contractors will actually charge you $125 a foot that you have to dig, right? So if you got a 3-foot tank, guess what? You're paying a pretty penny just to have them dig up that lid, and that's before you even start to pump the tank. In my opinion, that's a waste of money, right? Most risers in our area will usually cost between $600 to $1,000. So basically in 2 pumping cycles, that riser already paid for itself. And then you have it forever and you don't have to worry about doing it again. Now, modern construction, you don't get the option. You have to have a riser, and you have to have a riser at grade. By having this access, it allows the pumper a better chance to actually pump out your equipment, or pump out all the sludge from your tank, and it helps to make the drain fields last significantly longer. If you're not using a riser or having it pumped regularly, you're putting additional solids and debris into your drain fields, which can and will cause premature failure. My opinion is that any digging fee is basically a waste of money. You could spend that money doing so much more that it would be beneficial to have a riser installed. Now, I know that we've covered a lot of ground, right? This is a relatively short video, but I do think it's important to make sure that I kind of tell everybody this, that there's ways to save money, and there's also ways to end up spending more money. Now, whether the contractor tells you or not that he's charging more, right? So again, the 3 big things that you have to make sure you're conscious of is the vegetation that you put over your tank, right? If you want to hide it, that's fine. Just make it to where it's easy enough to get in there and it's not going to hurt the guy that's in the tank, right? Second one's flushable wipes. Just don't even bother with those. It's not even worth trying to attempt to find one that'll work for a septic system. And then lastly, just make sure your tank's accessible, right? Even a 6-inch clean out's more than enough to make it to where you can actually get to the tank, pump it out, and you can avoid those digging fees. Many of the homes before 2005 or 2010 in our area would only have a 6-inch PVC clean out, and that was still perfectly fine. It worked. Nowadays, of course, modern systems have to have risers, but just because it's an older system doesn't mean you have to necessarily make everything new. You just gotta have some kind of access, otherwise you're gonna spend more money. I hope you enjoyed content like this. If you got some value out of this, hit that like button, hit subscribe. I have more videos posted every day on the world of well and septic, and I look forward to talking to you guys tomorrow.